The alarm cut through the station like a blade, and I froze with my back against the cold wall of Corridor 9, my heart slamming against my ribs. Boots pounded from both directions. Red light pulsed over every panel. Somewhere behind me, a voice barked through the comm system, sharp and full of panic. Cub containment breach. All units converge on Sector 4. Repeat, the Cubs are missing. I felt the small shape shift against my stomach, tucked deep inside my hoodie, and I clamped my arm over the fabric before it could move again. 2 tiny heartbeats, fast and fluttering, pressed against my skin through the thin cotton. I could feel their warmth soaking into me, and I knew if I moved wrong, if I even breathed wrong, everything would fall apart in the next 10 seconds. I had found them 20 minutes earlier, curled behind a coolant pipe in the lower maintenance deck, shivering, their scales dull and cold to the touch. Reven cubs cannot survive long outside a heat source. Their bodies are built for the warm caves of their homeworld, not the freezing metal veins of a station built by people who like their air cool and their corridors colder. I did not think. I just opened my hoodie and pulled them against my chest, and within seconds they had gone still, pressing into my warmth like it was the only thing keeping them alive. Maybe it was. Now I stood in a corridor with security sweeping toward me from both ends, and I had 2 of the most protected creatures on this entire station hidden against my body. A guard rounded the corner, tall, armored, his scanner already raised. His name was Callum, one of the senior officers, someone who had never fully trusted humans since the treaty was signed. He looked at me with narrow eyes. Have you seen anything unusual down here? My mouth went dry. Just doing an equipment check, I said, keeping my voice level, forcing my shoulders to stay loose even though every muscle in my body wanted to lock up. Cold down here today. He stepped closer, scanner sweeping the air around me. I felt my pulse jump into my throat. The device was calibrated to detect Ven biosignatures, their unique heat pattern, their particular frequency of movement. But it was built to scan open air, empty rooms, ducts and vents. It was never built to read through a layer of human body heat, pressed flush against another living thing. The scanner beeped once, twice, then fell silent. Callum frowned at the readout. Strange, he muttered. Getting interference. Probably these old pipes, I said, patting the wall beside me like I had every right in the world to be standing there. They run hot sometimes. Messes with equipment. He studied me a moment longer, and I held his gaze, praying the cubs stayed asleep, praying my own pulse did not betray me. Then he turned and moved on, boots echoing away down the corridor. I let out the breath I had been holding, my knees nearly giving out beneath me. I could not stay here. If I stood still too long, someone else would come, and my luck would not hold twice. I pulled my hood up, tucked my arms tighter around my middle like I was cold, and started walking, slow and steady, back toward the crew quarters. The station was called Halbrook Station, a joint outpost shared between humans and the Ven people since the peace agreement 3 years earlier. I worked in the environmental division, mostly fixing air filtration units and coolant lines, nothing glamorous. But I had spent enough time near the nursery deck to know the caretakers, to know the cubs by their small chirping calls, to know which one liked to be scratched behind the neck ridge, and which one always tried to steal food off my tray in the canteen. Their names were Sael and Torv. Sael was the bolder of the 2, always first to explore, always the one who got them both into trouble. Torv followed wherever Sael went, quiet, watchful, but just as curious underneath it all. As I walked, I passed a group of Ven crew members clustered near the junction, talking in low, worried tones. One of them, an engineer named Priya, human like me, caught my eye and gave me a questioning look. I gave her a small shake of my head, a silent signal not to ask, and kept moving. She trusted me enough to let it go, though I saw the confusion still sitting on her face. My quarters were 3 decks up, but I did not dare take the lift. Security would be watching every transit point by now. Instead, I took the stairwell, my footsteps quiet, my breathing controlled, even as adrenaline burned through my veins. Every clang of metal made me flinch. Every voice around a corner made my stomach drop. Halfway up the second flight, I felt Torv stir against my ribs, a soft wriggle, a tiny claw pressing gently into my side. I stopped, pressed my hand flat over the hoodie, and hummed low in my throat, the same tune I used to sing when I worked alone in the filtration bay. It was nothing special, just a simple melody I had picked up as a kid, but the cubs had heard it before, back when they used to sneak into the maintenance corridor to watch me work, peeking out from behind crates whenever I passed by with tools. The humming worked. Torv settled, and within moments, both cubs had gone quiet again, lulled by the vibration of my chest and the warmth wrapped around them. I reached the top of the stairwell and pushed through the door into the residential corridor, and that was when I saw her. Nadia Voss, head of station security, standing directly in my path, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. My stomach dropped straight through the floor. "You," she said, "I need to ask you something." I kept my face calm, though my mind was screaming. "Sure, what's going on?" I heard the alarm. "The cubs are missing," she said, watching me carefully. "You spend a lot of time around the nursery deck, more than most. I need to know if you saw anything before the breach." I thought fast. Lying outright to her face felt dangerous, but the truth, spoken the wrong way, could be worse. If I handed the cubs over now, cold and frightened as they must have looked when found, the Vision leadership might question whether the nursery had failed, whether humans could be blamed, whether the whole fragile trust between our two peoples might crack over one bad afternoon. "I was in the lower maintenance deck," I said slowly, choosing each word with care. "I found them there, alone, shivering. I did not want to leave them exposed while I went looking for someone, so I kept them warm and started heading toward the medbay to get help." Nadia's eyes narrowed, but there was something else in her expression now, something less guarded than suspicion. "You have had them this whole time?" "They were freezing," I said, and I let my voice crack slightly, honest and unguarded. I could feel how cold they were. I was not going to leave them like that just to file a report first. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she reached out and gently touched the edge of my hoodie, where a small ridge of movement showed through the fabric. Her whole posture shifted, the hard line of her shoulders softening. "May I see them?" I nodded, and slowly unzipped the hoodie. Sale blinked awake first, chirping sleepily, his scales already regaining their natural blue shimmer now that warmth had returned to his small body. Torv stirred a moment later, tucking his head against my chest, before peeking out at Nadia with wide, curious eyes. Nadia's whole face changed, relief flooding through her like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. She lifted her comm unit to her mouth. "Cubs located, both stable. Bringing them to the nursery now." Word spread fast through the corridor. Within minutes, a small crowd had gathered, Venom, human crew alike, murmurs of relief rippling through the group. Then the nursery caretaker arrived, a Venom elder named Isolde, moving faster than I had ever seen her move before. When she saw the cubs peeking out from my hoodie, safe and warm, she made a sound I had never heard from a Ven before, something between a cry and a laugh, full of pure relief. She gathered Sael and Torv into her arms, pressing her forehead gently against each of their small heads, murmuring words in her own language, soft and quick. Then she looked up at me, her eyes glistening. "You kept them warm," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You did not report first. You did not follow protocol. You simply kept them alive." "I did not think about protocol," I admitted. "I just did not want them to be cold." Isolde reached out and placed a hand on my shoulder, a gesture I knew held deep meaning among her people, reserved for those they considered trusted kin. "Our biology fails us sometimes," she said. "We build strong walls, strong systems, but the cold still finds its way in. Your kind carries warmth in a way ours never will. Perhaps that is a gift we did not expect." Nadia stepped closer, studying me with something like new respect. "I think," she said slowly, "we may need to reconsider a few things about nursery protocol, starting with keeping a few humans closer to the cubs at all times." Word of what happened moved through the station faster than any official report could. By the next day, people I barely knew were stopping me in the corridors, thanking me, some Vehen even bowing their heads slightly as I passed, a gesture of respect I had only read about in briefings before. It felt strange, almost too much, but underneath the strangeness was something warm and steady, something that told me the bridge between our two peoples had grown just a little stronger. A week later, I was formally assigned to nursery support duty, 3 shifts a week, specifically to provide warmth during the cubs' most vulnerable hours. Sael and Torv greeted me every single time by burrowing straight into my jacket, chirping happily, already used to finding their favorite hiding spot. Isolde told me once that the other caretakers had started calling it the human nest, a term that stuck fast and never left. I never expected that a single moment of instinct, one decision to protect 2 frightened cubs instead of following procedure, would change how an entire station saw humanity. But standing in the nursery each day, feeling small warm bodies settle against me, listening to their soft contented chirps, I understood something simple and true. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness build the strongest bridges, stronger than any treaty, any agreement, any carefully written rule ever could. And every single day after that, whenever the cubs got cold, they knew exactly where to find warmth. They knew exactly where home was.